our nature of economics, and the following is on the screen. Without further ado, let's start this marathon immediately. So right off the bat, this is the Csec audiobook for ECON. This is the final product of my long video on the full course in economics masterclass. So let's start. So first of all, let's look at the central bank. So let's look at that. So the central bank is owned and operated by the state, meaning that everything it is the bank of banks to say in a nutshell. So let's look at commercial banks now. So a commercial bank is a business that provides financial services for profits. It acquires the funds used for lending through deposits, meaning that they take interest. Now let's look at copyright. Consumer expenditure. So copyright is basically in the case of you taking someone's content, someone's right to defend their own content in the form of writing, in the form of letter. In for example, with CSEC, CSEC actually has copyright policies which they can impose on individuals. So let's look at consumer expenditure. This is the total amount of money spent by consumers on output produced by producers. So the total amount of money spent by consumers is known as consumer expenditure. Now let's look at consumption. So when consumers consume goods and services to satisfy their wants and needs, when we utilize goods and services to meet our acquired wants and needs, that is known as consumption, which is consumers. Now let's look at cost push inflation. So cost push inflation is an increase in price of goods that occurs because of an leftward shift in supply curve of goods and services. So when there is a decrease in supply, that will increase the price. Now let's look at current account deficit. So a current account deficit implies that all the inflows in the current account are less than the outflows. So when there's a more amount of inflows in the current account, and there's less outflows, that is what we call a current account deficit. Now let's look at cyclical unemployment. So as national income changes, the amount of production and the amount of people change. So if the amount of income in the national treasury decreases, public sector workers will be put off. Now let's look at that. Now let's look at something called abnormal profits. And this is very interesting to note. So let's look into that. Abnormal profits refer to any profits ordered excess or over excessive profits than your standard profits. If your standard profit is $200, you make an abnormal profit of $1 million overnight. That is what we call abnormal profits. So let's look at domestic debt. So the total amount of money owned by the government to its citizens is known as its domestic debt. So the amount of money that the government owns to its consumers or its citizens is known as domestic debt. Now let's look at fractional unemployment. So this is due to people changing their jobs. And that's what we mean by fractional unemployment, meaning that people move from one set of jobs to one more specific jobs. In the case of an economy, majority of people move into the private sectors than the public sectors could be an example of fractional unemployment. Now let's look at retail cooperatives. So retail cooperatives are a group that seek to buy goods at an advantage and distribute it efficiently, meaning that they seek to buy goods at a lower price and sell it at a reasonable price so that they could make a profit. Now let's look at surpluses. Surpluses are caused when price in markets above the equilibrium price, leading to less demand and more supply, meaning that the higher the price of a good or service, the higher the supply will be and less the demand will be. Now let's look at regressive tax structure. So regressive tax structure is decrease in the proportion of income paid as tax when income increases. So the higher the amount of money you have within your bank account, the less they will tax you. And the less money you have in your bank account, the more they will tax you. Now let's look at real wage or cyclical unemployment. Real wage or classical unemployment, we would like to call it, is another term for real wage, is unemployment caused by wages being held above the equilibrium price, which is surpluses, or below equilibrium price, meaning that the price is too low. And usually people don't want to work for less money, or money that is lower than the normal income to survive. Now let's look at macroeconomics. So macroeconomics studies the economy as a whole and deals with issues relating to the entire economy, meaning that they look at things that affect the economy as a whole. Now let's look at market equilibrium. So this occurs when consumers and suppliers agree on the price and quantity of the good or service to be traded, meaning that they both agree to buy or sell a product at a particular price. Now let's look at market disequilibrium, which is the exact opposite of market equilibrium. So market disequilibrium occurs when the price in the market causes quantity demanded by consumers to be unequal to the quantity supplied by the producers. This could be the case of the suppliers oversupplying goods, meaning that the quantity demanded will be less, or they are undersupplying goods, meaning that the demand will be extremely high. Market disequilibrium, meaning that sometimes the suppliers will sell a good higher than the consumers want to or intend to buy that particular good for that price. So let's look at negative externalities that occurs in markets. So costs faced by third parties that are not directly involved in the consumption or production of the goods or services are known as negative externalities. So negative externalities occurs when costs are faced by third parties. In the example of, for example, oil prices going up not only in your country, but it's when you're exporting the good to other countries, the price of that oil is being extremely high in that country, affecting that country as a result of that. So it's not only affecting the citizens of your country, but it's affecting citizens of other countries due to probably low production levels. So now let's look at marginal costs. So marginal cost, also known as MC, can be defined as the increase in cost as a result of producing one more unit or of output. This is resulting since they did produce an extra unit, they will have to increase the price in order to make a profit, and that will increase the cost marginally. Now let's look at inelastic demand, which is our last concept or the last term that you need to know for CSEC 2025. It's very simplistic to understand. When demand is inelastic, the change in quantity demanded will be less than proportionate to the change in price. So what this basically trying to say is that the change in quantity demanded will be less proportionate to the change in price. An example of this is, for example, when the price of a certain bread goes up, but people still are willing to buy that bread at any price because of its necessity. Um, so if the price of bread moves from 300 to 500, people will still buy it because of its necessity. So this is everything for the Study Prep guys video today, guys. Subscribe. Konnichiwa, welcome back to the Study Prep guys channel, everyone. It's nice to be back with you. Today we're looking at a full course of the CSEC ECON. Hello, Oni-chans. It's nice to be back with you. You will not be failing Econ anytime soon with the Study Prep guy. This will be a complete course, everything down to the last bone that you need to know about Econ. So let's prepare for Economic CSEC 2025. Without further ado, let's actually start the video. Welcome back to the Study Prep Guys channel, everyone. Today we'll be looking at the complete course of economics for CSEC for 2025, May, June. The sitting exams next week. So it's nice to be back with you guys. This will be a full course. We'll be working past papers. Will not be working a lot because I want to make this video short. I will make a compilation video of every year from since 2020 to 2025. But for now, we're just looking at some basic questions or some repeated questions that usually come for economics almost every single year. This is under Section 1 will be looking mainly at the year 20. Let me just show you guys. We're looking at May, June 2022. We're looking at two questions. 2020, we're looking at five questions. 2021, May, June. We're looking at four questions. And for 2023, May, June, we're looking at seven questions. So this is the yearly questions that we will be looking at. We'll be looking at the most repeated questions for each of these years and how do they correlate with each other. So first of all, let's look at the first year of the bat. So this is the agenda. We'll be answering questions under each of these years. So first of all, we're looking at year 2022 May June economics, principle of economics, which really deals with the first unit of the of economics, which is very important to note. I did do a live stream with this, guys. I will post a card on top there. So if you guys haven't seen that video, you could look into it after you have finished watching this one. So let's look. So the first question is list the three agents of an economy. There are mainly three agents of the economy, including of household firms and the government. Economy agents are individuals or entities that participate in economic activities by making decisions about the allocation of resources. So households, which is the consumers, take goods for personal day-to-day use. Firms create goods and governments dispatch goods across the country. So the second question right off the bat is the state the role of each of the agents listed in AI, which is basically trying to say state the function of each of the agent listed, which is household, government, and firms. So first of all, let's look at the role of each agent. So first of all, suppliers. They make and create the goods and services, and another term for firms are suppliers because they supply goods and services for the overall economy with the hopes of making a profit. So suppliers they make and create goods and services that we use in everyday life. Government they are responsible for the dissemination or dissemination, which is the allocation of goods and services. They allow for the production process to take place. Without governments, the production process would be much harder. And then finally, we have consumers or household individuals, or consumers for short. They utilize the goods and services for personal amusement, for day to day activities, and for day to day life. And if you are watching me right out there, right now, you, my fellow viewer, you are a consumer. You're consuming my service. So you are part of the overall agents of an economy. So let's move on to May 2020 paper 2 economics, which is the first question right out of the bat for this paper on section I or section A, which is it says define each of the following terms, which is the law of demand and the law of supply. Now let's answer the law of demand versus the law of supply. And while the law of demand and the law of supply are distinct, they're totally distinct things, and I will explain that now. So the law of demand states as the price of a good or service goes up, the demand decreases. So the higher the price, the less people will want to buy it. And the lower the price, the more people will want to buy it. Right? So that's basically the law of demand. I can't really put it more simpler than that. And then we have the law of supply. The law of supply states as the price of a good or service goes up, the supply increases, and as the price decreases, the supply will also recuse, I like to call it recuse, meaning that as the price of a good or service goes up, the supply will increase, meaning the higher the price, the more supply. The lower the price, the less supply. That's it in a nutshell. So it states here, what are the determinants of supply? The determinants of supply are mainly government policies. Government policies could either cause something called an extension or it could cause a reduction of the supply. So, for example, if there are certain government policies that are bad for the supply chain operations, that will be negative. That will negatively affect the supply chain. Technology could increase the supply chain, right? So market share increase, I would like to call it. So depending on the if the technology is up to date, if we have advanced technology, we have machinery or capital that will increase the production process by tenfold, that will drastically increase the production process overall. We have population. Depending on the size of the population, the demand will be higher. If you have a low population, you will have less people to buy your products, and as a result, supply will be low. And we have fashion and taste. Depending on the generational ethical problems and how they live their lives, and what is more up to date in society, such as fashion and taste, or personal taste could be a reason or determinant supply also. So fashion and taste really does affect the supply chain because depending on what people want, they will buy. For example, clothing. Clothing might be more wanted than machinery in most cases. So a big question is, what are the determinants of supply now? Or the determinants of demand, sorry for that, the determinants of demand. So let's look into that. So determinants of demand really includes a lot of factors, but I only listed four here. The question only asks for two in the original 2020 paper two question for me, June. But some of the determinants of demand includes population, fashion and taste, government legislation, and technology are some of the major contributors to the demand. And price is also a very important part to play in the determinants of demand. So I believe that from reading these points that you could actually have a basic understanding of what are the determinants of demand. I don't believe I need to explain a lot on this. But in case of anything, let me explain anyways. So population, depending on the population or depending on the population density, it will have a drastic amount of demand in certain goods. For example, if you have a low population density, the demand for bread will be relatively low because a lot of people can't buy bread. If there is a general big population to say, there will be an increase in demand of bread because the population could actually purchase it and there's much more people to actually push the supply chain operations. Fashion and taste, that's very self-explanatory. Personal taste, some the population might like a certain good comparable to something else. For example, the latest iPhone might be an inclusion of fashion, and most people would want to buy it because of the updated taste and fashion in society. And government legislation, for example, demerit goods. Demerit goods are goods like drugs, tobacco, and harmful substances that usually harm the body. So, depending on that, the government will impose certain judicial legislation that will prevent or make the cost of purchasing these demerit goods extremely difficult. And technology also plays a very vital role because if technology production really reduces the cost of certain goods and services, which will thus increase the demand. And if the opposite is the same, if there is a case wherein there is little improvement in technology, the production process will be harder and that will increase the price of certain goods and services. So that's everything for this video, guys. You could contact me. My personal number is right there. Facebook, you could join the Facebook group. Patreon, we have Patreon at the Study Prep Guy, Facebook group chat. And then we have personal email, josephjones349 at gmail.com. You could personally email me about any question that relates to CSEC. Discord, you have my Discord link right there. And before you go, I have a quick note. This is very sad. Only 9.5% of my total geographic is actually subscribed. So if you guys haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now. It's very easy. You just have to click a button, and will have been subscribed to the Study Prep Guys Army or the Study Prep Guys CSEC. So anyways, guys, be prepared, be alert. Econ by the Study Prep Guy himself. Today we'll be looking at the production possibility frontier, presented by no other than the Study Prep Guy CSEC. This will be a full course on economics. This is the third segment on the nature of economics for the CSEC syllabus. So let's start. So, our learning objectives in this class is a definition of what is the production possibility frontier. That is inclusive of of what opportunity cost is, money cost is, the theory of supply and demand, and factors of supply and demand are the things that affect it, to say. So, first of all, let's look into the theory of choices and opportunity cost to begin with. So, let's look at our first batch of notes and then we will discuss. So, first of all, opportunity cost is something called opportunity costs are created due to the economical problem of scarcity, and scarcity creates choices. And when we considered everything in place, um, opportunity cost is the next best choice or alternative foregone. I like to use the example. For example, if you're giving up bread for cheese, the opportunity cost is bread, because you have given up bread in order to get cheese. You could not choose both bread and cheese. Since you have given up bread as a result, the opportunity in this, for instance, would be bread. Now let's look into the theory of supply. So this is the demand versus supply spectrum of the class. So the theory of demand states that as the price of a good or service goes up, the demand decreases because people don't want to spend a lot. And as the price of a good or service goes down, demand increases. So some factors that would affect demand is population. Is the population old? Is the population young? These little minute things affect the demand of certain goods and services. Because if you have an older population, they will most likely not be up to date with recent trends. And fashion and taste is a very important factor to come into place. You may have personal preference, you may want to have personal things, and it might just be that you don't like certain things that certain individuals like, or it could be something that is very fashionable, something that everyone wants, and that could make the demand of it go up. Government legislations, because for example on demerit goods like drugs, alcohol, and these demerit goods that are harmful to our health, the government might impose sanctions and legislations to prevent us from actually obtaining that, and that could decrease or increase depending on what policies they put in place of certain goods and services. When we think into technology, technology is one of the major factors or contributors to demand, right? And we'll talk about that later. But the three main factors or three main things that I would think that affect demand is population, government legislation, and fashion and taste. So let's look into the theory of supply, which is the opposite of the theory of demand. So while the theory of demand states that as the price of a good or service goes up, um demand decreases, and as the price goes down, demand increases. Is the exact opposite with the theory of supply. So the theory of supply states that as the price of a good or service increases, supply will increase. And as the price decreases, the supply will also decrease. Supply really works with monetary funding. So the higher the product, the more production that could take place. The lower the price of that product, the lower production that could take place. It's simple as that. So some of the factors that affect the supply or affect supply in an economy is approximate weather conditions, as in relation to some goods are better produced in a particular environment. For example, if you're producing lime juice and it's certain weather, the weather conditions are malleable and bad, that will affect supply. Government legislations against the merit goods, as I said before, improvements in technology. Due to rapid improvements in technology that could increase the production process, allowing for more goods to be produced at a time. Prices of supply for the production process. If the joint goods that are needed to produce certain goods and services are high, that will likely decrease the amount of goods produced. So that's some of the factors of supply. So this is an example of the production possibility frontier. And from this, I believe you will understand the opportunity cost and the production possibility frontier better. Sorry for the cough, guys. I'm a bit sick right now. So the concept opportunity cost, right? So something that I should really know. This is just repetition. Sorry for that. The thing that is given up for something else is the opportunity cost. We did discuss that in our last in the explanation from above. So in the graph, as you could see here, there are two products. They are guns and they are missiles. And the production possibility frontier shows the possible combination that could occur between two goods. Sorry for the cough right now, guys. I really do apologize for that. So When we compare guns and missiles, if you look at the graph, if you look at guns, we have 2000, 1500, 1000. We see a deduction by 500 points. So we start off with 2000 guns. But in order to produce 5 missiles, we had to give up 500 guns. So there's a deduction. So we have to give up something for something else. In this case, we have to give up 500 guns for 5 missiles. So in this case, the 500 guns that we have given up is the opportunity cost. You guys get to me? So that is why the production possibility frontier is straight. So from this little example, I believe that you could have a more comprehensive understanding of what the production possibility frontier actually is. So hopefully everyone is all right with that, guys. Anyways, subscribe to the Study Prep Guys Chill Zone. The Study Prep Guys CSEC. I do have a lot of contact. I have my personal information on top there. We have Facebook groups. We have Patreon with by the Study Prep Guy. You could have my personal email to actually contact me, and you have my Discord, so you could join my Discord group um at a particular date. A new website. I created a new website right now, guys, to for materials, free materials. I will be doing free classes free of charge. You have to pay nothing, and in addition to that, I will be creating a website. We have all of these notes, and for studying for your own purposes. I will have documents with questions also, so that could educate you guys. Anyways, I wish you guys all the best.
What would you die for? What would you lie for? Lie for? This ain't the Bible. 'Cause I got a rifle, rifle. Don't ever fuck with me. 'Cause I got enemies, I got enemies. Nobody's there for me. So Father, forgive me for you know that I am a sin. Take a witch's body, you a lick of.
Welcome to the Study Prep, guys. ECON. This will be a full course on economics. Welcome back to the Study Prep Guys CSEC, or the Study Prep Guys Chill Zone. And today we'll be looking at an introductory class into Econ. Without further ado, let's start. So first of all, what is economics? So economics is a social science that deals with the study of consumer decisions. So there are three basic questions that come to mind with the inferral of the basic economical questions are what to produce, for whom to produce, and how many. These are the three fundamental questions that shape the economical landscape in any economy in the world. So there's something called the traditional economy that we usually in for too. In a traditional economy, the owners of the factory production are the private and public sectors. Private sectors are usually owned by private individuals, while public sectors incentives are owned by government personnel, and the government in itself. The government usually implements certain bilateral incentives such as quotas and CET, common external tariffs. So the factors of production, the three main factors of production include land, labor, and capital. So land, this is in direct referral to the physical landscape utilized in the production process. The factor reward for land is rent. And labor, this refers to the skills and attributions of persons that drive the production process. The factor reward for labor is wages. Then we have capital. Capital refers to just machinery or things that the business owns, and the fact will be continuing down the lines in more detail. This will be a more detailed dive in comparison with the last video on the production possibility frontier part one. So, so the production possibility frontier, also known as the PPF, it's usually abbreviated as PPF. It's important for understanding some basic issues in economics, like the use of resources, which is the scarcity, because we have infinite wants versus limited resources, and that creates the economical problem of scarcity. So the description of the best possible combination of two goods produced using all the available resources, or the comparison or the total combination that could be an incursion of goods and services, or it's basically the comparison of two services that could be incurred within the production possibility frontier. So an example of this, let me just skip. For example, we have the example of butter and guns, which is the comparison. So within the production possibility frontier, we consider that to be inefficient. So when it's within the production possibility frontier, we consider to that to be inefficient use of resources. This is something called the efficient curve or the efficiency curve. There are different types of production possibility frontier. We did look at the constant production possibility frontier in the last video. So once it is within that line of segment, it is attainable. So, as with the dotted line, as you could see with my mouse, that is unattainable resources, meaning that with the resources that we currently have, we don't have the potential to obtain that. So the marginal opportunity cost of guns in terms of butter is increasing as we move down the production possibility frontier. As you could see, when we move down the production possibility frontier, there's a marginal increase in the amount of guns supplied. But in order for guns to be supplied at a greater quantity, there needs to be a deduction in the quantity of butter. We are making more guns, but what's the spread on the English muffin, as I would like to say? The PPF is typically bowed out or linear, it is bowed in. So at so within the case of this, there are different production possibility frontier. As I said, there is something called a reduction possibility frontier, production possibility frontier, and or the low scaling production possibility frontier, which is the worst case scenario. Right now, once we see it has this belly like shape, it's effective. But once it has a recessive shape, we consider that the inefficient use of resources, or like we call recession. So we're going to that just now. So let's go back down to the basic notes. So the opportunity cost of an activity is the value of the resources used in that activity when they are measured by what they would have produced when used in their next best alternative. We did discuss it in more basic terms. So, for example, if we use a resource to make potatoes, then we can't make any tractors. So the tractors in this case would be the opportunity cost. Our opportunity cost in this case is, I think I already answered that, that would be tractors. So the slope of production possibility frontier measures the marginal opportunity cost, which is the sacrifice that we have to make to increase the production process of producing one good in terms of the amount of other good for our gone. So we did look at this graph. I did said that in order to produce more quantities of guns, we would have to give up a quantity of butter, and that quantity or that difference between what we have to give up is something called the marginalization or the difference in opportunity costs. So in this, for instance, this is figure one. This is our first actual figure. So we have the incursion of 1 million quantity of goods per period. So life save per period. So you have the comparison between goods per period and lives per period. In order to increase the production capacity of a life save per period, we had to give up 50,000 goods per period. That 50,000 is the same incursion that we see within all of these things. So, in order to produce 8,500 goods per 2,000, or to save 2,000 or number of lives saved per period, we have the incursion of 2,000 here. And let me slow down a bit. So, we have 2,000 here. In order to save 2,000 lives, we had to sacrifice a total of 100,000 goods per period in order to have 2,000 lives saved per period. That 1,000 is the marginal increase. So at point A, all resources are used for other goods. Moving from point A to point B requires shifting resources out of their other goods and into healthcare. At point F, all resources are used for healthcare. So at point F, All our available resources are used for the production of healthcare services. So hopefully you understand that. So we have increasing opportunity cost, which is according to the law of increasing opportunity cost. The more of something we produce, the greater the opportunity cost to produce even more of it. So in order to produce more of something, we would have to give up a lot of our necessary practical resources. As we see it in the diagram below, as we go down, there's a decrease in the amount of quantity of goods per period due to the fact of the increase in number of lives saved, and that creates marginal increase in the number of lives saved. But while it does that, it creates a marginal decrease in the goods per period. And that's what we mean by the greater the opportunity cost of producing even more of it. The principle applies to all society's production choices. And as I said before in the last video, choices without choices, the idea of opportunity cost would not exist. So we have something called recessions, and this is the economical stagnation of an economy. This could be include in increased unemployment, factory shutdown, land and capital are not being used effectively, or they're just not being used to begin. To end a recession, would move the economy from point inside its PPF to a point on its PPF. So using either resource to produce more goods and services without sacrificing anything can help us understand an otherwise confusing episode in U.S. economical history. There have been a recession in the U.S. in the early 1980s. I don't know. I can't say for exact, but that was a very sad time for at least in that territorial distinction. So this is the second figure, which is the employment or the unemployment rate, and we'll utilize the production possibility frontier to show that. So when we have this is something called the rightward shift or the extension of the production possibility frontier. So military goods per period, and we have civilian goods per period. So before the World War II, the United States operated inside its PPF, meaning that it had a recession. Then moved to the PPF during the war, both military and civilian production increased, leading back to an at the state of bliss of economical decentralization, meaning that it moved from recession to a state of economical prosperity. So that's something to note. So this is figure 3, the effects of new medical technology. And from that, we have the concept of equilibrium. I will look at equilibrium in a later video. So we have the quantity of all other goods per period with the average of 1 million with the reduction. If you so take that into account, we have a difference of 3,000 marginalization at least goods per period. So let's read, but it's not vertical intercept. Um, a technological advance in saving lives increase production possibility horizontal intercept from this diagram. What it's basically trying to tell you is that there are different factors that could cause a rightward shift of the production possibility frontier, such as new technology, right? If there is new technology in an economy, the production process will increase, and that will lead to more our ability to obtain more goods and more services for the economy as a whole. So yes, guys, that's everything for now, guys. See you to the next video. Subscribe to the Study Prep Guys CSEC. This is the full course in economics. This is on the section of the production possibility frontier.
What would you die for? What would you like for? Life for? This ain't the Bible. 'Cause I got a rifle, rifle. Don't ever fuck with me. 'Cause I got enemies, I got enemies. Nobody's there for me. So Father, forgive me for you, know that I am a sin. Say the richest part of you will lick a
Welcome to the Study Prep Guys ECON. This will be a full course on economics. Welcome back to the Study Prep Guys CSEC or the Study Prep Guys Chill Zone. And today we'll be looking at an introductory class into Econ. without further ado, let's start. So, first of all, what is economics? So, economics is a social science that deals with the study of consumer decisions. So there are three basic questions that come to mind with the inferral of the basic economical questions are what to produce, for whom to produce, and how many. These are the three fundamental questions that shape the economical landscape in any economy in the world. So there is something called the traditional economy that we usually in for too. In a traditional economy, the owners of the factory production are the private and public sectors. Private are usually owned by private individuals, while public sectors incentives are owned by government personnel, and the government in itself. The government usually implements certain bilateral incentives such as quotas and CET, common external tariffs. So the factors of production, the three main factors of production include land, labor, and capital. So land, this is in direct referral to the physical landscape utilized in the production process. The factor reward for land is rent. And labor, this refers to the skills and attributions of persons that drive the production process. The factor reward for labor is wages. Then we have capital. Capital refers to just machinery or things that the business owns, and the factor of reward for capital is interest. And guys, this is a very short video. Subscribe, hit notification bell. See you guys.
Watch my 9mm go bang. Wah-da-da-dang, wah-da-da-da-dang. Watch my 9mm go bang. Wah-da-da-dang, wah-da-da-da-dang. Player haters, masturbators, bitches all up in my shit. Living scared, you know you did. Walking around with a cripple leg, heavy score, try to take my shit. Fucking with the rhythm kick. MAGNOLIA, that is where your ass will let you.
Video. Today we'll be looking at Csec Economics Compilation 100 questions every year since 2008 to 2014 or 2024 to have a comprehensive understanding of some repeated questions and some questions that usually always repeats for CSEC economics. Without further ado, guys, let's actually start. So first of all, this is on the term globalization when it says define the role of the WTO or World Trade Organization. So the role of the World Trade Organization, also known as WTO, is to regulate trade policies between countries. This could mean making sure that there's certain regulations to maintain free trade between countries. The second question is list three factors that influence the exports of goods and services. They are like trade policies, and that's usually implemented by the WTO. So those two terms they tie up each other a lot. And we have tariffs. This is tariffs on imports or taxes on imports. Quotas, meaning that we have a limit on the amount of goods that we could actually bring into an economy. And we have something called CET, which is common external tariff. There is other form of tariff such as preferential tariff and reciprocal tariffs. Those are some of the things that influence um, exports of goods and services. And CET is common external tariffs on non-member state. This is in like if you are part of the European Union will impose a certain tax on non-member states. So I believe we covered off that. Moving on to question three. It's this question is outline two factors that might cause a country to devalue its currency. First of all, this is usually occurrence in a recession or time of economical difficulty. A country may or may not will usually devalue its currency in a situation, um, which is the amount of money in circulation, right? Through the central banks. So depending on the economical state of the country, they may resort to devaluation of its currency. Another situation whereby they may devalue their currency is when there's too much of an influx of money on or an over circulation of money in the economy. So for question 4, it says discuss two consequences of balance of payments deficit in your territory. Some economical consequences of reduced balance of payments is reduced aggregated demand. This means that a balance of payments deficits occurs when a country imports more goods and services than it exports. And this could lead to a negative multiplier effect, which lead into lower consumption and investment in your country. We have something called currency depreciation. This is another situation where a currency may be depreciated, which is a balance of payments deficit. um, a persistent balance payment deficit can undermine investor confidence, meaning that they see your market as a bear market and they won't want to make any investments. Question 5, it says list three characteristics of Caribbean economies. Caribbean economies are usually a source of tourism, but usually they are very small territories like the Barbados Islands. Majority of the Caribbean are inclusive of islands, and islands, as we know, are not very big. And we have something called open markets, wherein by the all of these economies are very open with their markets. And then we have question 6, list three ways of measuring international income. We have something called the income method, GNP, gross national product method, and we have the expenditure method to see how much we're actually expending, the income method to see how much we're receiving, and the gross national product is basically a sublimation of both of those things. Moving on, we have question 7, which asks a very basic question, outline two factors that might influence savings. So everyday necessities, you buy things every day. The age of individuals, it could depend on what they need. For example, if you're an adolescent or if you're within your early 20s, you might spend a lot more than when you're in your 50s. And we have interest rates. Sometimes you have income taxes or the amount of income that you have. It might be a 2% income tax, and that will be reduced from the amount of money that you have. Economical state, if the economy is going through inflation or recession or deflation and what's not, that will affect the amount of money you have, thus which will affect the amount of savings you have. Then we have question 8. Let me go back to that. Distinguish between economic growth and economical development. So economical growth refers to an increase in GDP, which is gross domestic product or the amount of products in the economy as a whole. While on the other hand, economic growth or economical development, sorry for that, refers to the natural industries that contribute to GDP growth. It could also mean improvement to the living standards and quality of life. Economical development is referral to one specific sector, while economical growth refers to the whole economy or everything in the economy, everything, while economical development refers to different sectors of an economy. So the last question on our list today, or not second to last, I would like to say, is define trade liberalization and globalization. Trade liberalization is just basically removal of trade barriers and taxes on imports, while globalization is a term used for the world becoming a global market. I don't believe that if any definition could get simpler than that. Move on to our final question of the day, which is question 10. Outline three benefits of trade liberalization to Caribbean economies. So first of all is joint development. You have more access to different economies, and that could lead to better investment and overall development. Innovation. Since you're working with other economies, there is better opportunities for innovation to occur, higher production levels due to more accessibility to resources, better quality of life because of more resources, and free movement of skilled personnel. And for more information, guys, you could check out the link to the document as on the screen. Anyways, guys, all the best. See you guys in the next video. The Study Prep guys. All right, so this is Csec 2024 for economics. So it's nice to be back with you guys today on this video, in this brand new video. So I would say. So let's start. This is economics paper 2 general proficiency. It consists of 5 questions. You must answer all questions. So list 3 factors of production. The main factors of production include land, labor, and entrepreneurship. Land being something that is intangible, labor being something that, or one reward of wages, as you could see, one reward of labor, as you see down here, is wages. And entrepreneurship, you usually get profit incentive from this. So, as it relates to describe the characteristic of each economical system, they're mainly mixed economic or the mixed economy, the traditional economic and or the traditional economy, and then we have the planned economy. So, in the traditional economy, these types of economy are usually democratic and are usually determined by the will of the people in an economy and substantiated by the will of the people, meaning that, for example, in a planned economy or what you consider to be a command economy, there is usually no differentiation between a line name and a count back down to how the businesses are usually run within the economy. There is no private sector economy within a planned economy. But in a traditional economy, there is both public and there private enterprises that usually work within that area. So within traditional economy, there is a mixture of both planned and private economies. Within a command economy or a planned economy, also known as a command economy, is a type of economy whereby all the important aspect of a country is controlled by the government, meaning that the major decision-making processes such as wages, standard of living, quality of life, and even the goods and products and services that you as a citizen have is determined by the planned economy. A good example of this is within China. China is a planned economy. North Korea is a planned economy. Perfect examples of that in today's society. Citizens of these economy usually have no say in diplomatic incentives. They don't have any say in what goes on in their country. It's not a democratic country. It's more of a dictatorship or an authoritarian type of leadership than one of a democratic leadership where citizens have a say. Moving on. So indicate the effect on the demand and supply curves in each of the following scenarios. The price of gasoline increases. If the price of gasoline increases, supply will increase demand. The demand for gasoline will significantly decrease due to thus leftward shift of the demand curve will happen. And then we have the effect of supply curve. Due to the price increase, the supply of goods will increase, thus causing a rightward shift of the supply curve. Correct that. That's that. We have II, consumers' preference for coconut has increased. If consumers' preference for coconuts have increased, that will cause both an increase in demand and an increase in supply. So there will be a significant increase in the demand of coconut due to it being more preferable in this scenario. And how will it affect on supply curve? Due to an increase in demand, the supply of coconuts will drastically increase. So drought has affected the production of bread. If there's a deficit in the production or the supply chain of bread, like for example materials needed to actually produce bread, that would cause scarcity. And if there's scarcity, demand will increase. Demand will increase due to scarcity of the good, i.e. the bread. And how will it affect on the supply curve? The cost of bread will increase and supply will decrease due to that issue actually being in place. They will have to increase price. So, state 2 branches of economics. There are the 2 main branches of economics is micro and macroeconomics. I'll do a separate video explaining these terms, so I'll do that later. So, monopolistic. You look at this term individually. Market structure. If you look at the monopolistic market structure, there is usually no competition. There's only one person producing this good. In an oligopoly, there are usually big enterprises producing one good, so the production quantity or the production quality increases due to competition. And if you look at monopolistic competition, there's competition. With monopolistic competition, there's like no variation in its incentive, right? So there is an increase in the quality of goods due to competition and due to increase, even lowering the prices would be enacted in the situation. You have perfect competition, goods may vary in quality. They usually sell similar goods, but it's usually not exactly the same. So So, with the use of example, explain how each of the following affects the shape of the production possibility frontier. So, new fashion and taste that could affect it. Increase in population density that could cause a rightward shift due to increased population. People want more stuff. Increase in population, improvement in technology could also increase the production process, thus increase in profit incentive. We have constant opportunity cost. Constant opportunity cost is caused by factors such as population density, income, and fashion and taste are some of the things that could actually, and something that I forgot. Yeah, personal income is another thing that could actually affect that process being carried out. So let's go through this as quickly as possible. A perfect competitive form sold 50 pence at the price of $10 each. It costs the firm $6 to produce each pen. So you have to basically multiply 50 times 10. That will be 500. If you actually divide it by 6, will have 83.3 incentive of profit. That's not deducting the cost of wages of workers. So that's very basic, quick work. So moving on down to E. Recently, the firm learned the cost of ink will drastically decrease next week. So recently, the firm, I will have to think of this on a later video, but for now we'll come back to this. We'll come back to this question right here. Let's move on. So study table 1 below, which shows a list of terms and definitions, and answer the question that follows. So we have the term ceteris paribus, and this means, if you could see right here, let me actually try to make this thing as understand as possible. I use red. So I'll use red for this instance. We'll think right here. So ceteris paribus is in relation to this one, which means all other things being equal. Ceteris paribus meaning all other things are equal. Then we have cost price elasticity of demand. This means measuring. This we could show you guys right here. Measuring the change in the quantity purchase of a product when its price changes. We have equilibrium, the market price and quantity demanded when supply and demand are equal, meaning that both the supply and demand intersect, and that causes equilibrium to actually occur in the middle. So that's equilibrium. Scarcity measures scarcity. Economical resources being unable to meet unlimited wants, meaning that we have infinite wants but we have limited resources. And we have income elasticity of demand, measures the change in the quantity purchase. I think that right here, that and that measures the change in the quantity purchase of a product when income changes. That's what income elasticity of demand means. Price elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness in the quantity demanded of one good when the price of another good changes. So that's that for that. So let's move on to question. So which question? This is question 3B. With the use of an example, explain price elasticity of demand in each of the following situation. If the elasticity is greater than 1, the demand is considered elastic, meaning that consumers are sensitive to price changes. That's utilized in one example. That's that for that. It is equal to infinity. When the price elasticity of demand equals infinity, it indicates that the product is infinitely price sensitive, meaning that even a small change in price has a significant impact on the quantity demanded, meaning that even a slight movement of or the increase of a product will significantly affect the demand. For example, in the situation wherein, for example, we have a business by Marshall Enterprises. We have Marshall Enterprises. Marshall Enterprises sell a good usually at equilibrium price of $10. If that goes above the equilibrium price, like for example $11 or probably $12, even $10.8, that will significantly affect the demand or the price elasticity in this case scenario. So let's look at this. Identify the type of elasticity indicated by the following scenarios. John experienced a 20% increase in income, so her quantity demanded for juice increases by 20. That's income. That's in relation to income elasticity of demand. And then we have Joe's demand for jam increased when the price of jam decreased at his local supermarket. So that's cost price elasticity of demand. Jim started to sell more plums when the price increased by $20 last week. That's cost price elasticity. And then we have identify the value of demand elasticity given in the following scenarios. Raw purchased 10% more coffee when the price fell by yes, this is income price elasticity again. Runs purchase of painkillers fell by less than 20% when the price increased by 20%. So that's very simplistic. That's cost price elasticity. Roy continues to purchase the same number of life-saving drugs he needs even though the price keeps increasing. That income price elasticity. So I'll just leave this answer so that you guys can see. Some of these things I did not do, guys, but I'll come back to that. I'll come back to these terms, I swear, guys. But I was a bit rushed to make this video. I'll have to make a part 2 answering those bits that I couldn't get the answer. So we'll leave that for now. So it says here, define each of the following terms. We have the term fiscal policy. This is the influence of taxation and other means to control the economical movement, i.e. development of the country. And recession, this just simply means the times of economical difficulty. There is a crash in the market. The market is not exportation. We have a lot of economical difficulty. That's what recession basically means. And developed country, a country that has advanced technologies and standard and quality of life is very high, and the standard of living is also very high in these economies. That's what it basically means. You have to explain how each of the following factors may cause a recession. A rise in the exchange rate. Increased taxes and tariffs placed on goods can lead buyers of the goods and services to not want to purchase the goods and services. This can lead to recession. If you increase the exchange rate, or probably put on the CET, common external tariff on goods and services, that will likely cause a recession due to countries not wanting to buy a product due to high taxation costs that they could have at significantly lower prices at different economies and different countries. You have an increase in debt. High debts are likely to affect economic development, thus leading to stagnation in trade and foreign affairs, thus leading to economic deficit and recession. And we have high interest rates. And let me add in something here. High interest rates. High taxes on exports goods can lead to less goods being purchased externally. If you have high interest rates on goods and services, for example, CET, as I said again, common external tariffs, we have other incentives such as duties, we have taxes on goods and services. All of these things can lead to profit, to services not being you or countries not wanting to trade with you in a generalized sense. You have a reduction in real wages. Decrease in wages will lead to decrease in productive member of society, thus leading to less goods being produced, thus leading to a recession over a long period of time. And that is everything for this video, guys.
In a world of knowledge, where dreams take flight, there's a channel that guides the sun and is so strong. Mentor and friend with wisdom and passion, he'll help us strengthen, help us strengthen.